Hi, everybody. This is Charles Hoskinson broadcasting live from warm, sunny Colorado. Today is January 12th, 2020. It's a new year and a brief update on what's going on with Cardano. Okay, so as you guys are aware, we launched the incentivized testnet middle part of December, and it was a bit rocky. And unfortunately, Christmas comes in and New Year's comes in, and the team that was responsible for delivery for the incentivized testnet had been working for about 4 months straight without break, in many cases also working the weekends. So after they delivered as stable as possible of a testnet as they could, the majority of that team went on vacation, some for 3 weeks, most for 2. This put us in an unfortunate situation where certain bugs and issues that were known were not able to be addressed until the team returned. So that team is back. They're at full strength now, and they mostly came back last week, and now they're working again. And we should be able to issue a patch for network stability sometime next week. And thereafter, we'll continue to release regular patches at the cadence that you've come to expect with the Rust team. We've been able to collect an enormous amount of data about the use and misuse of the protocol, things such as what is the saturation metric? Do we need it? Should it be adjusted? Things like stake pools operating on multiple chains at the same time. And this is exactly what we anticipated for, and really, frankly, one of the purposes of the incentivized testnet. If you look at the goals, the KPIs, the reasons why we launched the incentivized testnet, the first reason was to get to the business of the user experience of being a stake pool operator and the experience of delegation. So the point was to enable you guys to be able to create your pools, build a relationship with people, and demonstrate that there's a group within the community passionate and capable of running infrastructure. Obviously, the software needs to continue to evolve for this to be a perfect user experience, but the user experience is a moving target because this is the first time where we've released it to the general public, and we're now getting a lot of feedback about the good, the bad, and the ugly. Second, we were very curious to see if the parameters we had chosen and the way that we had designed the protocol would allow us to achieve decentralization and performance and a stable network. So we're working our way through that. And it's incredibly important to understand that it's very easy for us to install proactively and retroactively as we evolve all kinds of measures to network conditions or activities or behaviors that are discovered to be counterproductive. For example, we have a pledging mechanism. It would be very simple for us to install punitive measures with that pledging mechanism in the event that a fraud proof was developed, that someone is behaving maliciously to the network. For example, making multiple blocks at the same time for different chains. And what we're doing right now is collecting data and trying to get an understanding of why people are doing what they do, how they're doing things, and making some final decisions about how the protocol will evolve prior to the launch of the mainnet. This is the second primary point of the incentivized testnet. Outside of the user experience and the business of delegation and staking, it's also to look at the incentive scheme and the design of the protocol to allow us to tune things live with you, the users, to fix things and get things where they need to go. It's important to understand that this is a testnet, and the entire point of a testnet is for things to break and for things to change and for things to be tested that aren't necessarily going to go into mainstream. And the point of an incentivized testnet is that we all have an incentive, my company, you guys staking, to work together to try to find a way for this network to be stable and try to find for a way for this incentivized testnet to be successful. This said, the code that will be deployed in production almost certainly will be the Haskell code, unless something comes up, but more likely than not will be the Haskell code, and that has a very different timbre, and that has a very different design, and it has a very different quality level. It's more complete and holistic end-to-end because it was built from formal specifications. The reason why we did not launch the incentivized testnet with the Haskell code is that the Haskell code does take longer to bring to market because we've had to redesign, rewrite everything from scratch. And this is the culmination over a year's worth of engineering. So the incentivized testnet gives us an opportunity to test the experiences, the parameterizations, and the business that will be required for the protocol to get where it needs to go. And then when we launch the Haskell code, that is what gives you the assurances that everything has been designed correctly. It's important to understand that these are different and they're going to have different quality levels and different experiences. So many of the bugs you're seeing right now, many of the connection issues you're seeing, many of the kind of edginess that the incentivized testnet has due to the fast production of that software will not be the case with the Haskell code, because it was constructed from formal methods, thoroughly tested, and built with different standards and rigor. However, the Haskell code intimately benefits from the fact that we will have a large population of stake pool operators. It intimately benefits as well from all the lessons we've learned about how to parameterize things and if we need to put punitive measures in or not. This is how good engineering is done. You divide and conquer, you break things down into simpler problems, and you systematically work through with your customers, the community, these issues, and you come up with good mitigations. I understand the frustration of people running into issues with the incentivized testnet at the moment. Had we been in a normal development cadence, a lot of the issues that those who are experiencing issues would have already been corrected. But the holidays did slow us down a little bit. However, everybody's back. And so we're back into a normal development cadence. And as you saw prior last year, how quickly we were able to go from the networked testnet to the incentivized testnet, and how quickly we were able to stabilize things with mitigations. I'm very optimistic that this month will resolve most, if not all, of the major issues people are having with the incentivized testnet, and give us then a nice platform to finalize some experimentation prior to the launch of the mainnet. So things are moving along. I was just at Real World Crypto, and I had a great opportunity to meet with our chief scientist, Aggelos Kiasis, and we spent about 6 hours covering the entire 2020 research agenda, things ranging from finishing the Ouroboros research agenda that we started in 2015 to things such as our collaboration with Peter Schwabe and producing a post-quantum signature scheme for Cardano so we can harden Cardano against quantum computers, to things such as improving our network stack design, to things such as usage of recursive snarks and other state-of-the-art future technology. It was a very comprehensive conversation, and we're right now finalizing our 2020 research budget, including a donation to the University of Wyoming. So great things are coming, and it's really amazing to see that we've accomplished so much so quickly on the research side. Another thing to point out is that our development velocity continues to increase through every product in our portfolio, from Daedalus, the wallet backend, Cardano node, which is the Haskell node, Jormungandr. We are looking at weekly to bi-weekly releases for most of the software, and we are systematically working our way through not only bugs and issues, but new feature requests and requirements. We are far more commercially oriented than we've ever been, and we're far more disciplined than we've ever been as a company. So I'm very optimistic that we should easily be able to satisfy the requirements of Shelley, Goguen, and we should easily be able to get Voltaire implemented, and part, if not all, of Basho implemented this year, depending upon how ambitious we decide to be with scalability. The Hydra protocol should be ready for its first paper sometime in February, as we are targeting a Usenix submission. This protocol is quite good. There's a lot more room for improvement, but we feel can dramatically accelerate Ouroboros from where we're currently sitting, which is already on even a conservative estimate, at least 5 times faster than what Ethereum is at its peak efficiency. And this is without aggressive optimization. Furthermore, we have really figured out comprehensively the theory of proof of stake to a point where we should have good mitigations for things, for example, like spikes of dishonest majority, which Ouroboros Genesis currently does not cover. So we have a lot of great protocols, a lot of great ideas and designs, and we feel very good and very confident with the science, and we feel very good and very confident with the engineering and what we've been able to accomplish in short order. In terms of the commercialization of the technology, especially with Goguen, I firmly believe for Cardano to be a successful platform for smart contracts, at the very least, we must have 4 fundamental properties that we have good stories about and good development experiences about. First, we must have a good multi-asset standard that covers the grid, meaning fungible, non-fungible, regulated, and non-regulated. For example, with Ethereum, they have standards such as ERC20, ERC721, security token standards, and so forth. We must have competitive offerings within the Cardano ecosystem for those who wish to issue assets, and a compelling reason why our ledger is a better ledger to issue these meta tokens to bring these communities in. We've had numerous discussions with those who have ERC20 tokens, and we feel that we have some very good ideas that we can bring to the table to make Cardano uniquely competitive. Second, we must have some way of bringing external information into the network. These are commonly called oracles or data feeds. As we've seen with the success of Chainlink, and as we've seen the success of many of the Oracle solutions floating around in the DeFi space, there's a lot of promise and potential here, but it is a necessary requirement for applications on and off chains to function correctly. Cardano, like Ethereum and other smart ledgers, must be aware somehow through some mechanism of the outside world. And thus, we are now working with Emurgo and the Cardano Foundation to pursue a good Oracle standard for Cardano. Third, we very much believe that identity is a first-class citizen. Bitcoin started with the asset and only one asset and no comprehension of identity. Since the launch of Bitcoin over 11 years ago, we've now seen things like the DID standard, the self-sovereign identity movement, projects like Sovereign and Hyperledger Indy and so forth emerge their way through. And as a consequence, we are now in the best position as an industry to make identity a first-class citizen within a ledger for the purposes of being able to have an aliasing system, being able to reuse this for pub sub, use it for multi-sig, use it for things to be embedded within contracts, and so forth. And we have a project called Prism working within the Atala team, building a ledger agnostic identity solution based upon principles from the DID standard and Hyperledger Indy. This will be ported to Cardano, and I've made it a highest priority of the team to do so within this year, so that we have a very strong identity solution that we can begin integrating into Cardano infrastructure in anticipation for dApp use and consumption, and also to allow us to improve the user experience, everything from human readable addresses to being able to have direct communications with people, to being able to have subscription channels for stake pools so that they can directly communicate through the message center to those who have delegated to them. There are numerous use cases for identity as a first-class citizen. And then finally, after identity, there has to be a good story about metadata and data to be embedded within transactions. We see things like the FATF requirements for the travel rule. We see things such as consent and approval, contingent settlement, as simple as hashing a contract that has been signed by both parties and embedding that in a transaction is becoming increasingly a requirement for our systems to maintain regulatory legitimacy within the developed world. So obviously there has to be capabilities within the ledger and within transactions so you, the users, can make decisions about what to do for the transactions you broadcast and for the applications you write in order to stay in compliance with the law. So these are the four things that we must do, in my view, for Goguen, the very least, to offer a competitive solution. Now, obviously, there has to be a litany of other things, from successful development tooling, interoperability with Ethereum, some baseline DeFi infrastructure. I would love to see a DEX and a stablecoin within the Cardano ecosystem, because this is required for better liquidity of ADA in markets that don't have it, as well as things like remittances and microfinance. And we've begun a very aggressive, through our commercial director, Jerry, conversation with the Cardano Foundation about what is the minimum viable investment required to enable a bootstrap as quickly as possible for this type of infrastructure to get built out. Plutus is leaving the laboratory, Marlowe is leaving the laboratory, and it's going from an academic project to now a commercial project. And this means that we're now going to, instead of talking about how do we optimize things and how do we get the theory right and formal semantics, we're now having aggressive conversations about how do we build things and how do we build great things that are going to change the world. So in the coming months, as we close out Shelley and we start moving into the Goguen era, we'll see a dramatic acceleration in hackathons, a dramatic acceleration in investment in tooling, investment in people building pedagogical applications. And our hope is that Emurgo will publish on the record a formal investment thesis for those who wish to invest and build dApps within the Cardano ecosystem, alongside a firm financial commitment of how much money they intend on investing in those portfolio companies. I think it's important that we give the market clarity and we give the market a good idea of what we're looking for as an ecosystem and how much money Mirko is prepared to commit towards that portfolio, which geographies are a priority. I've also had discussions with the Foundation Council about two particular geographic areas, one Africa and the other Japan. Last year, John O'Connor, my director of African operations, worked with ICE Addis and created a great proposal so that we could have presence in almost every African country with hundreds, if not thousands, of meetup groups and exposing millions of people throughout Africa to Cardano as a platform and inspiring them to do things with Cardano as a platform. I formally requested that the Cardano Foundation approve the proposal that ICE Addis and John O'Connor have presented, or at the very least, negotiate that proposal to something that could be of mutual benefit. Furthermore, I've asked for the Cardano Foundation to begin executing a dedicated Japan strategy for the second half of 2020 so that we can further invest and build up our presence in Japan. The Japanese community is extremely important to us, and we believe in them. They believed in us since the very beginning, and we feel that it's incredibly important that they don't get left behind as we build up the Cardano ecosystem globally. And I would love to see meetup groups in every single major Japanese city. And I'd like to see a lot of pilots and projects and dApps coming out of rural Japan in areas that need this technology the most. Supply chain for agriculture can work just as well for the coffee farmer in Ethiopia as it can work for the rice farmer in Japan. So it's very important that we have a strategy for that. And I've asked for the foundation to begin drafting one and to make a financial commitment and to work with their partners, namely Emurgo and IOHK, towards this end. And so a lot is happening. We're moving very quickly. There's many things that will occur this month, next month, and March. Many software releases are to come. On the horizon, we have the Byron Reboot shipping with the Haskell Wallet backend integrated. That is in final development. And if it doesn't hit this month, it will hit next month. We also have the OBFT hard fork. These are the last upgrades required prior to the Shelley mainnet upgrade for the Haskell code. So it just remains to be seen when the Haskell Shelley testnet is launched and what economic modifications we wish to make prior to the launch of the mainnet. The better job we do with the incentivized testnet, the faster this process will be. We are also deep in a security audit at the moment with our partner, Root 9B. And as soon as we have the audit report, we can begin remediations. And then as soon as those remediations are finalized, we will publicly publish that report, giving some assurance to the community that a third party has reviewed our code for security audit and that the code is in good order. We firmly believe in the quality of our software, but it is important to verify claims that are made. And while scientific claims can be verified through the peer review process, software claims do need to be verified through security auditing. So thank you all for listening. It's going to be a long month for me and for the IOHK team and for all of our partners. But our best days are ahead of us. I firmly believe that Cardano's year is this year. I see things imminently happening, and it's really been amazing to see things come together. It still is going to require a lot of work to get us over the finish line, but the software is there, the engineers are there, the vision is there, and so let's get this done. So everybody grab a shovel and let's go build the future. Thank you so much for listening.